My lords and your ladyship, I come at the very tail end, and my approach will be, number one, to respond to some of the issues that have been raised in submission by the petitioners, and to point you in the direction of the authorities and our submissions. And if your lordships and your ladyships grant me latitude, let me start by characterizing the pleadings before you. You will note, number one, that the pleadings before you suffer from lack of focus and particularity. Number two, you will note that if one was a legal Puritan, the main affidavit by the Honorable Raila Odinga is actually a defective affidavit. My learned teacher, Feroz Naroji, is here. You cannot start an affidavit with "we." I'm simply characterizing that affidavit. Number two, you will note that the affidavits offend Order 19, Rule 1 of the Civil Procedure Rules. The affidavits are full of hearsay, and I want to submit that Article 159 is the refuge of those who are on a fishing expedition. I'm inviting your lordships and your ladyships to examine those affidavits to their full effect. Number two, I want to be in a position to characterize what animated the petitioners to file this petition. And I'm submitting to you that this petition is an afterthought. I don't have enough copies, but I will take you, if you permit me, to the foundational reason given by the principles of the political coalition called NASA, and read on the 15th of August by the Honorable Raila Odinga. This is what the Honorable Raila Odinga read. We had said we will not go to court, but with the raid on civil society and determination to silence all voices that could redress legal, like AFRICOG and Kenya human rights, we have now decided to move to court. But the pièce de résistance is this. Our decision to go to court constitutes a second chance for the Supreme Court to use this to redeem itself. That is the basis upon which I'm locating my case and justifying why this particular case is here.
Just a minute, Mr. Lumumba. Yes, Mr. Orengo?
I'm just saying this report is not a rostrum, so typifying as a oration. You should tell us where that statement comes from and whether it was in the case correct on record.
My Lord, this is a statement that is in the public domain.
If it's not on record, then it can't be part of it.
Mr. Orengo, you will notice that we have been very, very patient. Mr. Lumumba is looking at the clock. He has the minutes. As soon as, if he goes on a tangent, as soon as the time runs out, we'll ask him to sit down.
Absolutely.
Thank
and
you.
I'm not going on a tangent. So that your lordships and your ladyship, that is what animated this case, and that is the reason why the pleadings are the way they are. And if you look at the submissions that have been made, the first submission is made by the Honorable James Orengo. And the Honorable James Orengo refers you to Article 1 of the Constitution in response. He says that this petition is essentially a petition of the people of Kenya. We are submitting to you that this is a petition by two petitioners about an electoral result. And that therefore, when you are looking at this petition, the question to ask is whether your petitioners have satisfied the requirements of the law in proving their case. And we have demonstrated, the submissions have been made to demonstrate very clearly that there is no case that has been proven. My lords, you will note that in the submissions made by the Honorable Orengo, he submits that a number of votes that have been cast, and this is also shared by Paul Otiende Amolo, that out of the 15-odd million votes, only 23,000 of them are in doubt. My Lord, the maxim of law used to be de minimis non curat lex. Professor Juang taught me that, and he'll remember. Of small things, the law knows no cure. And I'm submitting to us that what we have here are petty grievances, administrative errors, and no court in the world has ever nullified a presidential election on the basis of what falls under the de minimis rule. The second presentation made to you is through the submission of my good friend Otiende Amolo, who brings to the table what he calls numerical and non-numerical issues. And Otiende, in his submission, says that this court should only focus on what he describes as the substantive. In other words, numbers do not matter in an election. My lords and your ladyship, what then matters in an election? What matters in an election is that individuals come and vote, and those votes are counted, and the voice, the will of the people is expressed in that way. My Lord, I refer you to Article 86 of the Constitution, which says that at every election, the Independent Electoral Commission shall ensure that whatever voting method is used, the system is simple, accurate, verifiable. I'll not address you on those details. My good friend Otiende went into characterizing those. Who must verify? In whose eyes must they be simple? Madame CJ, as he then was in the case of Stanley Munga Githunguri, said, the test is the man in the Pangani bus, the ordinary man. What you are shown here, complete with Pythagoras' theorem, to tell us what the voting went, that is not what the test of the election is. The test is very simple. And we have demonstrated through our affidavits that are on record, which I invite you to look at to their full effect, that the system was simple. And I want to imagine that your lordships and your ladyships walked there yourselves. You are identified. You are given 6 ballots. You marked your preferred candidate. That is how simple it was. It does not require Pythagoras' theorem. My Lord, after the Otiende had talked about given us the Pythagoras theorem, we had Okongo Omogeni's submissions. And Okongo Omogeni is my very good friend, and I love the submissions. They were in the nature of asking you to make prescriptions for law reform. That is not what you are here to do, and your lordship was very correct in telling him that that is at a forum to which he will belong after he's sworn in. In other words, what is before you is the determination of this petition on the basis of the prescription of the law, not on the basis of law reform issues. My good friend Mutaha Kangu was even more interesting and amusing. The thumb rule, never quote yourself. Mutaha Kangu, in his submission, quoted his book, quoted the writings of Waikwa. Those are opinions of individuals. Those are not things that should guide this court. And I'm submitting to us that on the evidence that has been adduced before you, and every allegation has indeed been answered blow by blow, the test is as found in Article 83 of the Constitution and the 2013 Raila case. It is noteworthy that you are referred to an 1872 English statute, that is the Ballot Act. I'm submitting to us that this court, and I want to submit to your lordship that when this court is sitting in determination of a presidential election, your jurisdiction is sui generis. Sui generis because you are sitting as a court of first and last instance. And therefore, when you exercise your jurisdiction, it is actually an insult to you to be asked to look at a statute that governs county elections in the United Kingdom. I'm submitting respectfully that you ignore such invitation. You are then taken by Otiende Amolo into what he described as the standard of proof. And this was also addressed by my learned friend Mutaha Kangu. And Mutaha Kangu made a very amazing proposition that the duty of the petitioner is to establish a prima facie case. And that once they establish a prima facie case, then the burden shifts. Nothing, respectfully, your lordships and your ladyships, can be further from the truth. The truth is, and this is the rule of the thumb, he who alleges must prove. And I'm submitting to you that your petitioners have made allegations, they have made many things, but they have not proven anything. My lord, you are then taken to the case that has now been cited ad nauseum, the case of Maina Kiai. And it's instructive that when my good learned friend and my student Antonio Luoch showed the video stopped at a very convenient point where the late Musando said, and the chairman cannot vary the results. That's where it stopped. And the Honorable Justice Ojwang asked the question of what evidential value. If your lordship look at the Evidence Act at section 106B, you will discover that the manner in which that video was introduced offends all rules of submission of evidence under our jurisdiction. I'm therefore submitting to us that in totality what you have is a litany of allegations that are literally standing on stilts and have only one fate. They fall when they have been faced by the weight of evidence that we have supplied. The other question that was raised is on the significance of elections. And this was Mutaha Kangu at Article 4 of the Constitution. He said that elections, and the Honorable Justice Mokin Wanjala was right and quick in saying that the lecture was Constitutional Law 101, in which he tried to educate us on what a republic is. But my submission is that in this petition, what we are grappling with is that the people of Kenya in their totality came out on the 8th day of August and expressed their will. This court should be very reluctant to overturn the will of the people of Kenya unless it can be demonstrated that indeed that will was subverted. And it has been demonstrated by the first respondent and the second respondent, the first and the second respondent, that indeed all the prescriptions of the law, and this, my lord, when you retire, I do not want to belabor this issue, when you retire, the question that I invite you respectfully to ask, what is the litmus test? And my lords, when you look at our list of authorities, which has a number of authorities which I'll not take you through, it was filed on the 25th day of August, the year 2017, with a total of 30 authorities. The first authority is the Constitution. And what we invite your lordships and your ladyships to do is to look at the Constitution and ask the question, did this election satisfy the prescriptions of Article 81? And in my respectful submission, it did. Did it satisfy the prescriptions of Article 86? And in my respectful submission, it did. And once you've looked at the Constitution, the next question that you will ask yourselves, that when you look at the enabling legislation, did it satisfy those pieces of legislation? Did it satisfy the regulations? And the answer is that it did. And when you arrive at that finding, the only decision that I invite you to arrive at is that the people of the Republic of Kenya on the 8th day of August did express their will, and the first and second respondent did midwife. Remember, your lordships and your ladyships, ours is midwifery. We delivered a baby. That baby is alive and well. You are being asked to strangle the baby. Decline the invitation. Decline the invitation because the baby is alive and well. The next issue that we want to submit on as I draw to the conclusion, because I want to be very pointed, is to draw you to our own submissions. My Lord, I've always said that when one wants to submit for too long, it tells you that there is actually no case. That which is clear is stated in a very brief manner. My Lord, if you look at our own submissions, which submissions were filed, dated the 25th day of August this year, we use the submissions to address all the issues that are germane to this petition. And I want to draw your attention to pages 2 through to pages 3, paragraphs number 5. Paragraph number 5 is important because it captures the essence of our case and simply tells us that the election of a president is a process. It is not an event. And if you look at the totality of the process, you will discover that this process is a process that satisfied the requirements of the law. And we have demonstrated at the point of identification, at the point of result, the point of counting, the Forms 34, Forms 34A, B, C, and D, up to the transmission, and we have demonstrated beyond peradventure that indeed this was an election that complied with the law. My Lord, I also want us to look at in our own list of authorities on pages 8 through to page 11. You will discover that those are the pages that deal with the entire process. And it is worth noting that your petitioners, through their agents or through their sympathizers, have before this date litigated every aspect of the election. That is in the public domain. Every aspect has been litigated, including the procurement of ballot papers, including submission, including the transmission of results, so that as we come here, if one were to use the word res judicata loosely, I will not. I would say that these issues are res judicata, but I will not say that, knowing that your jurisdiction is sui generis. So the totality of our submissions, your lordships and your ladyships, is that we have demonstrated through the various affidavits that this petition is destitute of merit. And because it is destitute of merit, it should suffer only one fate, the fate of dismissal. But there are two things I want to say before I sit down. That when you look at your petitioners' written submissions, they suffer the same fate as all their pleadings. The rule of the thumb is that you don't use your submissions to introduce new evidence. Their submissions are used to introduce new evidence, thus offending all the rules that govern written submissions. In a nutshell, my lords and your ladyship, what you have before you in my respectful submission, is a petition that is dead on arrival. What you have before you is a petition that is replete with speculation, is a petition that does not have the evidential weight that is worthy of overturning the election that was conducted by the first respondent and its chairman, the chairman of the IEBC. I therefore respectfully submit, on the basis of the submission that have been made on our behalf, on the basis of the affidavits that have been filed, on the basis of the authorities that we have filed, on the basis of our written submissions, which you'll have the opportunity to read in their full flavor, to come to a finding that this petition is without merit and to dismiss it with costs to your respondents. Those are my respectful submissions. Unless your lordships and your ladyship want me to clarify anything, I beg to sit down.